What is poppin', YouTube? Back again with another video. We got the jerseys behind us. We got the whole setup ready, but we are talking about some Dynasty stashes for this video. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you like Dynasty fantasy football. We're out of the redraft time. Hope you enjoyed the Super Bowl. You enjoyed some good food, but let's get into this video. First Dynasty stash that we're going to be talking about is going to be Noah Fant, who is going to be a free agent in this next free agent class. And I think a lot of people forget about Noah Fant and just how good Noah Fant was coming out of school. If you don't remember, him and TJ Hawkinson were looked at as the top two tight ends, both out of Iowa. Noah Fant was looked at the more athletic tight end freak that he was, but TJ Hawkinson, of course, got the draft capital as well. And Noah Fant, when he got traded from the Denver Broncos to the Seattle Seahawks, there was a lot of excitement that, oh goodness gracious, Noah Fant could be the tight end one for Geno Smith and the boys. Finally gets the opportunity, but of course fell on that depth chart when you're kind of have to fight with mouths like DK Metcalf, Jackson Smith and Jigba, and Tyler Lockett this year and even last year. So going into this offseason, I'm excited about Noah Fant because he's still relatively young for a tight end where he's 26 years old. And a lot of these tight ends, we really don't see them start to produce until the age of 26 or 27. So Noah Fant, he's going to land somewhere where he is needed as the tight end one in this free agency class. And we could be looking at him maybe taking over as the tight end two next to Travis Kelce for the Kansas City Chiefs. We could see him going into a situation like that. We could also see like a team like the Houston Texans go out and get a guy like Noah Fant. I just think he's been really underused in the situation that he has, but he's also underproduced. 4.5 40-yard dash. I mean, he's just compared to George Kittle, who is looked at as one of the most athletic tight ends in the game. So go get some Noah Fant. He's probably either out on waivers or you can go have him for a back end third, middling third pick. I like some Noah Fant. My next stash player is going to be Greg Dulcich, Mr. Three-Legged Greg for the Denver Broncos. I hear you. Greg Dulcich had an amazing rookie season, and this season absolutely put up a tanker where he only played in 2 games, 4.2 fantasy points in week 1, only 1 fantasy point in week 6 before he got hurt again. But if we look at what he did as a rookie, I mean, we're talking about a guy that had a stretch of week 6 to week 8, 12.4, 11.1, 12.7 fantasy points per game. And a lot of us were excited about Greg Dulcich and that potential that he had. Now, Sean Payton trades for Adam Troutman, and we should have realized that Sean Payton likes his type of guys in this offense. But all reports were from the preseason that Sean Payton was really enjoying seeing what Greg Dulcich was doing. We've seen what the type of tight ends. He had Jimmy Graham. He's had some really high-producing fantasy football tight ends. So I was a little bit perplexed on Greg Dulcich coming into the season because I was excited. I thought Greg Dulcich was a back end tight end 12, tight end 1 in Dynasty Fantasy Football, but that really was not the case. Greg Dulcich has fallen all the way to tight end 23 on Keep Trade Cut. I mean, guys that are going ahead of him. We're talking about Chig, we're talking about Darren Waller, K. Dotton, and even behind him, Brevin Jordan, Dawson Knox. So there's a good chance that you're able to find Greg Dulcich on the waiver wire, but I even think there's a chance that you're actually going to be able to go trade a 3rd round pick if you really want to go get a guy like Greg Dulcich, because let's be honest, I really like the measurables. If you look comparatively what he did his rookie season, he was up there with a Kyle Pitts and with some of these really great rookie tight ends. Now, it wasn't anything like Sam Laporta this year, but Mr. Three-Legged Greg Dulcich definitely deserves to be stashed on your Dynasty Fantasy Football team. My next must-stash player for Dynasty Fantasy Football is going to be Ryan Tannehill. Now, Ryan Tannehill is 35 years old. And yes, did Ryan Tannehill get benched for Will Levis this season? He did. But Ryan Tannehill was never the future for the Tennessee Titans. That team had a ton of holes that Ryan Tannehill wasn't going to be able to slide in and do. And I am super excited about Ryan Tannehill because Ryan Tannehill most likely is going to find himself on a new team in 2024. It seems to me that the Titans are heading into a full-blown rebuild. So Derrick Henry probably going to get out of there. Ryan Tannehill most likely will either be traded, cut, released. He'll find himself on a new team. Now, there's a ton of good draft capital, draft picks coming out of the draft this season when we're talking about Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Caleb Williams. So what team would take a chance on Ryan Tannehill? Well, I think there's a few teams out there, but I think especially a team that's looking to win that maybe he's going to be a bridge quarterback. He's going to be the Kurt Warner to Eli Manning. He's going to be a quarterback that's going to come in, that's going to be able to not only show the young boy the ropes, but be able to produce on a fantasy football level. So I like some Ryan Tannehill. I have him stashed on a lot of my teams. When we're looking at him, especially in super flex leagues, Ryan Tannehill is just going to be super valuable for you to kind of get going. So when we're looking at Ryan Tannehill, I'll be completely honest. I literally had to scroll to the second page of the quarterback rankings on Keep Trade Cut. He's literally right now as QB51. Ryan Tannehill is essentially free, if not for a 3rd, 4th round pick in your super flex draft. I think that chance of him getting any meaningful production in 2024 is better than some of those picks. So go get some Ryan Tannehill onto your team. I like that in Superflex leagues. If I can add him as my QB3, as my QB4, you can never have too much depth. And especially if you trade for him now, there's a chance he signs to a better team. All that hype comes. You could probably flip him for a back-end second-round pick come the draft time. I like some Ryan Tannehill. He's a mustache candidate for me. My next mustache player is going to be Trey Lance. Now, the fall of Trey Lance has been absolutely terrible. We all know. Traded 3 first-round picks by the San Francisco 49ers to go up, get him in the draft, and he was never able to really see the field except for 2 games last season before he essentially got injured, was out the whole year, and then Mr. Brock Purdy turned into Mr. Joe Montana. And I like some Brock Purdy, and I am sad to see what happened to Trey Lance. But right now he's QB 33 on the market. And I know he's with Dallas, but there's some, rumors fluttering out there that Trey Lance potentially could be a trade target for a team that's not able to get a young buck in the draft this season. And if we look at his dynasty value, it has never really been lower. We're talking he's in the same range as guys like Miles Sanders, Dawson Knox, an early third, Mac Jones. And as much as we just saw Mac Jones, he had a starting role with the New England Patriots. He got benched. We don't know what's happening with Mac Jones. We're excited about Trey Lance. We're excited about the Konami quarterback. And I think the jury's out on Trey Lance. He really started 2 games, wasn't able to beat out Brock Purdy, which Brock Purdy is a Super Bowl level quarterback. And I'm not saying that Trey Lance is a bad quarterback. I'm not saying he's a great quarterback. I am just saying for fantasy football purposes, the jury is still out on Trey Lance. So I am willing to go invest at Trey Lance at these rock bottom prices. What are the odds you find Puka Nacua with your early 3rd round pick this year? What if you trade a 2026 3rd round pick, a 2026 back end second to take the shot at Trey Lance? Now, a lot of people are going to tell you that's absolutely crazy, Caleb, because you probably could find him on the waiver wire. If you can find him on the waiver wire, you're in a little bit shallower league, go do it. But if you're in like a start 11, start 12, start 13 type lineup, when maybe you're playing 12, 14 players, go see what it's going to take to acquire or get Trey Lance, because I do like that Konami code quarterback upside that he does possess. Let's not forget, he's still 6'4", still runs a 4.69 40-yard dash. We just need to see it. And I'm excited to see what Trey Lance can do, especially in these super flex leagues. Now, we gave you some quarterbacks, we gave you some tight ends, but let's give you some running back stashes that could potentially pay some dividends next year. Because let's be clear, last year, if you were stashing Kyren Williams after a terrible year that he had, you held on to him. You saw what happened this year. I saw a report that was given today that essentially 7 out of the 12 RB1s next year will not be the same RB1s that were this year, which essentially means there is a good possibility that you take some late round dart throws that you might get an RB1. Now, finding Kyren Williams is a lot harder than expected, but let's give you some names that could potentially fill that role for you. My first stash in the running back ranking is going to be D'Onta Foreman. Now, D'Onta Foreman is entering free agency. And over the last 3 seasons, D'Onta Foreman kind of beat the Achilles tear bug, has had really meaningful role on teams that have been dealing with injuries. And so if you look, really, people tend to forget Foreman did have a 2,000-yard rushing season in college before that Achilles injury really stunting a promise opportunity in Houston a few years ago. But like we said, he's regained that burst. He's regained that hard nose running. And D'Onta Foreman's going to be looking to get a new home during this offseason. So during games when the Bears featured him as a rusher, he was really a bruising, hard-nosed running back. Great eye for the end zone. He also caught a ton of passes. So comes at an affordable price. You're going to see him going for the super late picks. I've seen him go for a 4th and a 5th. I saw him go for Kendrick Bourne here recently in the league. So go see what it's going to take to get D'Onta Foreman. I think he could be another late round bruiser. We love to get those veteran running backs where they're essentially dead cheap assets, but go get D'Onta Foreman. I think the upside is definitely there to be had. And my last mustache player is going to be Jake Bobo out of the Seattle Seahawks. Yes, you heard me right. Jake Bobo there for a while was looking better than JSN, was playing in the wide receiver 3 sets. A lot of people were like, how is this undrafted wide receiver out of UCLA beating out JSN 1st round pick? And a lot of people were getting a little bit upset with JSN. I mean, when we look, week 7 against Arizona had 16.1 fantasy points per game, was wide receiver 18. Week 8 had 10.6 fantasy points. So we saw him have some very good fantasy football outings. Now, when JSN finally took over, he ended up playing in most of those wide receiver 3 sets. Now, the thing that's exciting for me about Jake Bobo is the fact that Tyler Lockett is probably going to be leaving in free agency this season, opening it up for JSN to kind of slide into that wide receiver 2 role, but that wide receiver 3 role to be opened up for Jake Bobo. Now, I understand the draft could potentially happen. They could draft somebody that comes in and gets that wide receiver 3 role. They sign somebody in free agency. I hear you. But Jake Bobo had some promising flashes as a rookie. Now, 3.4 fantasy points per game, wide receiver 114 on a points per game basis with only 25 targets last season. That's not like cutting it. I'm not saying that Jake Bobo is all of a sudden going to come onto your roster and turn into something great, but there's a good chance you can find Jake Bobo out on your waiver wire. And I think that is an absolutely mustache candidate for you going forward. I appreciate you guys for all tuning in. We're going to be putting out a ton more Dynasty fantasy football content, a ton of rookie content coming up over the next few days. So subscribe if you like Dynasty fantasy football content. If you're one of my redraft folks and you don't necessarily love Dynasty fantasy football content, tune in because this content helps you promote, get ready for next fantasy football season as well. So I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Hit that subscribe button. I'll catch you on the next one.